Three, two, one. Karin Yee, who runs the Choosing Gratitude YouTube channel. Great title for a channel. I see there is no check mark next to your channel, but maybe someday you'll have that well, very popular check mark that people love to get to show that I am the official one with this name. So I think you're certainly worthy of it, having the Choosing Gratitude title with all the things you talk
Oh,
about
I
and all the
didn't know
gratitude.
that. What kind of check mark is
Yeah,
that?
yeah, there is a check mark of sorts that on
Oh,
some social
huh.
media sites where if you have that, that makes it clear to the viewers, I am not a fraud, I'm not a imposter, I am the real, genuine one. So maybe someday you'll
Oh,
be able to have that.
interesting.
So
Okay.
um, with that being said, I need to give the same disclaimer I do to all my listeners. I think I'm gonna stop bitching about this because I've bitched about it long enough, and I'm sure the listeners may be tired of hearing about it. But ever since this past Christmas, I have been postponing my YouTube interview video show uploads. Every time I do a show, I always wait 2 to 3 weeks before I make it public for everybody. I only allow for Patreon subscribers to be able to listen to it. Unfortunately, nobody seems interested in paying the fee to on Patreon to be able to listen to my show early. Everybody wants to be patient and wait the 2 to 3 weeks to listen to everything, which I really can't blame them in a sense with the way this world has turned upside down financially for many people. But it appears that maybe at some point in the future, I don't know when I would do this, but I may have to make my shows at least 50% pay-per-view, where I make people force people to have to pay me to listen to the whole entire interview. That would really suck, I know, but I've heard a lot of stuff from people saying you can't be reluctant to have people pay you for the work that you do. It's certainly a great thing for people to start doing in this day and age to show that you're worthy of everything. And but with that being said, also my shows are also uploaded to Cost.tv in addition to YouTube. There's always a 2 hour delay after at least a 2 hour delay after uploading YouTube because Cost.tv takes a little time to upload it. So if you don't see the link in the description yet, folks, just listen to it on YouTube. But if there is a link in the YouTube video for the interview description for the show on Cost.tv, please only listen to it on the video on YouTube for 15 seconds for the sake of giving me a view credit, and then click on the link to listen to Cost.tv because Cost.tv, the more people that watch it, the more money I can make because it's a blockchain currency channel. So that being said, Karin Yee, I'm very glad that you were able to come on my show. I was going to have you on sooner, but I accidentally double booked. And I didn't want to have the other person that I booked on that day to have to wait because I already double booked them once before, so I kind of owed them the show. So, but you are on now. It's great that I'm having you on this
Yay.
9/9 numerology day today. As a April 9th in a 9 universal month, and Carrie Samuels on her calendar says that this is a 9/9 power day. Nine has a lot to do with endings and all and whatnot. So maybe something significant. We can maybe talk about that in this program. But you're more of the
Mhm.
Chinese metaphysics type and Chinese zodiac and Feng Shui and that kind of thing. I have your channel up and I'll use it as a guide throughout this program. But first, I need you to introduce yourself. For those that haven't heard about you, who are you, and what did you experience that causes you to be the researcher and do the things that you talk about? You've got the floor. I promise not to interrupt you. I don't have Alex Jones-itis. I will shut up and put myself on mute so you can talk about as long as you need. But please try to keep this kind of brief because we don't have any more than a little over an hour to do this show as you requested. So go right ahead. Your life story.
Sure. Hey, everyone. I'm Karin Yee. I'm the founder of this Choosing Gratitude platform. I have a YouTube channel called Choosing Gratitude. You can just go to YouTube and search the word and you'll find my channel. I also have a website that is choosinggratitude.net. Basically, I see myself as a seeker, as a fellow seeker. I think I have been a seeker since the day I was born. My life story is basically just, I think I see it as a journey of seeking this connection with the divine. And I have personally tried many different things. I've done, yoga, meditation, and I have been practicing Zen Buddhism in the past 15 years, 16 years. So I started to become interested in Chinese astrology when I was 8 years old, 8 or 9, I think. That year, I remember my father, myself, we're Chinese, of Chinese descendant. My father went to see a Chinese astrologer. At the time, he was just about to start a business. And the astrologer told him that at the time, I think he was about 35, 36 years old. And they told him that he was going to be rich at 38. And but he's going to die at 58. And my dad came back, and he, I think being a 35-year-old, he wasn't too concerned about the death date of the death year of 58. He was just like excited about getting rich at 38, because at that time, he was just a few years away from 38. Well, now my father is in his 70s and he's still alive. Obviously, he didn't die at 58. He didn't get rich at 38. So we were just talking about this the other day, and that was actually what inspired me to get into this thing, and I was extremely curious. And also, to be honest, at that time, at 8 years old, I was more concerned about my dad was going to die at 58. I was thinking, oh no, I don't want my dad to die at 58. And I thought it would be nice to be rich, but, I was fine with the way we were. So I was thinking, I have to find a way to save my dad so he won't die at 58. So that's how I started just learning about Chinese astrology, consulting different masters and reading books. And I just loved it. And I got into I Ching, and I was when I was a teenager, I was very much about the divination and just everything I did. I had to first ask, try to cast a, they call it gua in I Ching. I wanted to ask the universe if I should do it or not, whether it's auspicious or not. I was very much into it, but I actually was doing well with that. And I would have friends, like all these kids coming to me, asking me, like somebody lost a cat, somebody, like when they get older, when they're like, when we're about 18, people came to me with their love, just love stories, they wanted to ask me about their future with their boyfriends, that kind of thing. I became like a fortune teller kind of person, but with time, I realized that was not what I was really seeking. What I was seeking is really a way to just be aligned with what is really true, what is real, and I couldn't find it. So I actually kind of stopped doing those things, and I started, reading books about. This was around the time I started reading the book Conversations with God by Neil Donald Walsh. And then I got into law of attraction, and I practiced law of attraction for many, many years. And I still do. I still do a lot of law of attraction content and coaching. So I see myself more as a manifestation coach, but I use Chinese astrology as a tool. So about a few years ago, maybe about 5, 6 years ago, I started to get into, I think about 10 years ago, I started getting into Western astrology. And about 5, 6 years ago, I started to kind of revisit Chinese astrology and started to really make that connection between Western astrology and Chinese astrology, and put that into my practice of manifesting my dream life. So that's how everything started. And, I started my YouTube channel in the beginning just for fun. I thought it was about 3 years ago. I thought, I was able to manifest this life of my dreams. And I wanted to show people that you can turn thoughts into things. And I think that Chinese astrology is really a great tool. I really don't want to see it more than just a tool, because I think what's even more important is your own ability to manifest your life and your own connection with the entire universe. And Chinese astrology is like a compass that kind of, help you get there, help you understand where you're heading. Are you in the right direction? So that's kind of the work I do. I do, a lot of people call me a Chinese astrologer. I do a lot of readings for people, but I don't want to just limit myself to just being an astrologer, because I think that I'm a helper. I'm here to help people manifest the life they want, manifest the life they deserve to live. And I'm here to help people really find out who they truly are and live that dream version of themselves.
And I'm glad you're doing that. And I certainly believe that one of the biggest mistakes humanity has made has been to allow for some of the Western schools of thought to overcome, for lack of a better word, the Chinese and Eastern schools of thought, because the true nature of everything, I can't imagine, with very few exceptions, how the Eastern schools of thought is so much better at understanding the big picture of everything. And it's seems a lot more complicated for some in the Western world, but it doesn't have to be. It says here in your I downloaded your 15-page guide to code your life with Chinese astrology, and it says, unlike Western astrology, which mainly studies positions of the planets, Chinese astrology studies 5 basic elements and the duality of each. Those elements are water, wood, fire, earth, and metal, and each element can manifest in yin and yang. So. A lot of people think of the 4 elements: earth, fire, water, and air. But there is no air here. It's metal and wood. So why exactly is that in Chinese astrology and versus Western astrology?
That's a good question. I think whether it's Chinese astrology or Western astrology or Vedic astrology, I think they're just a different system to describe the same thing, which is the vastness of this universe. And I think with our human consciousness and human language, it's hard for us to find the right words for it. That's why, we develop different systems, right? So in Chinese astrology, I don't want you to see these elements as just, like when we talk about wood, that's, the wood you use to build a house or trees. I think it's basically a certain kind of energy pattern. So in Chinese astrology, the 5 elements are basically the 5 building blocks of universe, the 5 building blocks of everything that this universe has. So you and I, we probably both understand the concept that everything comes from energy, vibration, and frequency, right? It's hard to really it's hard to describe energy, vibration, and frequency in any concept that humans can possibly conceive. That's why the ancient Chinese, our ancestors, decided to use these very basic elements that people can see and touch in their environment to explain what kind of energy flow this is. And then when these energy patterns work with each other, they create very complex world. It's just like, you only have 26 letters in English language, but, with these letters, they dance with each other. Then we create novels, we create anything, right? Anything we can think of. So I think I wouldn't say Chinese astrology is so much deeper than Western astrology. I am trained in both, and I kind of see them as 2 complementary systems. They just describe the world differently. It's like, you know, in like when you see a bottle of water, in English we say water, in Chinese they say shui, and in Spanish they say agua. You know, they sound vastly different, but these are just labels, and they're all pointing to that substance, right? That substance really can't be described with just a word. It's a kind of energy, right? It's unique in its own way. So I think we're just using these systems to understand the universe and to really become one with the universe.
Yeah, you say become one, but yet you have something that's based on duality here, saying each elements can manifest in one of these two directions. Interesting how you use the word directions. Then you say those two directions are yin and yang. Many people think of yin as being more feminine and yang being masculine. Now, there are some that would say that the yin yang philosophy is kind of not a philosophy you want to follow because duality, well, duality is not the way to go. You want to be unity, they argue. Although I know some people that have become so unity based that they become so polarized that they're willing to attack anybody who doesn't agree with their beliefs. Lily Earthling Kosalova is one classic example of that. So, do you, I guess, for lack of a better question, agree or disagree with the idea that it's a bad idea to incorporate yin and yang in your philosophy because duality is not the matrix you want to be in?
I don't really want to judge what is good, what is bad. That is kind of against the philosophy I believe in, and I do believe in things exist the way they are, and how Chinese astrology has existed for over probably at least 3,000 years, probably about 5,000 years. There is a reason why it works and, it exists. But my personal understanding of this is that, it's not duality. It's called, it's like this divine system. It's like when you have a coin, it has two sides. And if you just look at each side, you think they're different coins, but they're essentially the same coin. And also, if you look at if you pull out on Google like a yin and yang, what's it called, the Tai Chi picture, okay? So that's the essential symbol of Chinese astrology or Taoism. What you see is, it's a circle, right? It's half black and half white. So half yin, half yang. However, it's not just divided in half. It's, on each side, there is a different color. So it's basically on the black side, you see like little white dot on it. On the white side, you see a little black dot on it, okay? So the idea of the yin and yang is not that yang is good, yin is bad, or yin is good, yang is bad. Actually, in traditional Chinese belief, the yang cannot exist without yin, and yin cannot exist without yang. That's why, they need to coexist and they dance together. It's like a divine dance, and they seem to be separate, but they're actually one. It's very similar to, the Christian idea of Trinity, right? You have the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. They seem to be three different entities, but essentially they're one. I think this is basically it's just different ways to explain the same thing. So in Tao Te Ching, which is the main scripture of Taoism, which is also, which Chinese astrology is deeply seated in Tao Te Ching, they say, initially it's nothingness, and then the nothingness, out of nothingness, there comes one, the oneness, and then oneness, split into two becomes three, and this three generates everything. Well, I'm paraphrasing. The original scripture may be, different. This is just how I understand it. So it's really more about, everything that appear to be different, there is a commonality right there, and they all come from the same source. And I believe that, in today's English, we call it universe or source. And if you see the world this way, then, all the divisions are just illusion, right? And essentially we're one. That is the truth. And also in Chinese astrology, they talk about, you know, if you look at somebody's birth chart, they're going to something very, very concrete. You know, usually Chinese astrologers will tell you, you know, you have too much yin in your chart, you want to add more yang elements into your chart. Or, you know, oh, you have, you know, all of your elements are yang, so we want to, you know, we want to kind of balance it. So the Chinese astrology doesn't look at one element as being better than another. It's more like this never-ending circle of life, you know, in which the 5 elements, they generate each other, but they also challenge each other. Like, you know, for example, water challenges fire, right? But water generates wood, water generates wood, and wood generates fire. So essentially, these 3 are flowing in harmony. So if you just have water and fire, these 2 are fighting, but you add wood in between, guess what? They're in perfect harmony. So that is the philosophy of Chinese astrology.
Thank you. And I'd like to get into now something. Well, I usually don't want my guests to like give me readings and all on this show, because this isn't supposed to be about me. This is supposed to be a general education thing for everybody to learn from. But there is something specific about my date of birth that I need to address with you, and I did try to address this with Kevin Chan, who's one of Joey Yap's colleagues, who's another prominent member in the Chinese metaphysics field. My date of birth, I recently turned 35. My date of birth is April 7th, 1986. And the Chinese lunar date for that, it's interesting. It says the lunar date is February 29th, 1986. But there's a problem. 1986 was not a leap year. So there was no February 29th in 1986. So what exactly is going on here? How do I make sense of this?
So we're really talking about 2 completely different systems. So the Chinese, the calendar we use as Chinese astrologers is the ancient Chinese solar calendar. So even in ancient Chinese, there are 2 kinds of calendars. There's a lunar calendar, there's a solar calendar. So the lunar calendar is when people talk about Chinese New Year, you know, the beginning of the new year. That's not the solar year, that's the lunar year, okay? So actually the solar year starts usually a few days before Chinese New Year. So it is all confusing. And the calendar we're using today, I believe it's from the Roman Catholic Church, right? So we're also using a solar calendar in today's world, not just in the West, in the East also. But this calendar has nothing to do with the Chinese calendar. So there is a little bit of a gap. And according to Chinese, so how the Chinese calendar, the Chinese solar calendar works is that it's all based on seasons, okay? So the ancient Chinese people observe how the planets work, and they observe, how the planets align with each other. So they determine, so on the day of the spring solstice, that's when they believe that that's the beginning of the spring. So they see that as the beginning of their solar year. And they evenly divide their year, I think it's like 360 days or something, into like 12 months. And sometimes they would have a leap month. I think I forgot how many years, they have a leap month, which means like last year we had 4 Aprils according to Chinese calendar. So it's all very different. That's why the April 7th, that's your Western calendar. And sometimes in traditional Chinese astrology, they convert your birth date into the Chinese solar date to read your chart. So it's basically just they're trying to look at, based on the season you were born, they want to define what kind of element you are, like what's the status, what's the state of your core energy. And that's one of the schools. My school is a little bit different. There are many different schools of Chinese astrology. So I'm not going into the differences because there are just way too many schools, but that's how certain schools work. They heavily look at the season you're born. In my school we're not too crazy about that because, you know, we basically see people from all around the world. And my understanding is that, you know, when you only read charts for people who are born in China or in East Asia, you know, in that region, there are 4 distinct seasons in many places, okay? And so people's energies are actually really, really influenced by the change of season. You know, if you live in a place with 4 seasons, you definitely tell the difference. You know, your energy is affected. However, like for example, right now I'm in South Florida, and I only have like 1 season here. You know, it's always hot. So the 4 seasons, you know, probably wouldn't affect me as much. You see, so when you're reading for clients from all around the world, you know, according to my school, you know, the season you're born is not really that important. So I wouldn't be too hung up on the dates. You know, it's just all, you know, just a reference point to help your astrologer run your chart, basically.
Okay, thank you. Now I'd like to, I guess, talk. Even though I want this interview to be something people can look at through future time as a reference for things to do research with, it's kind of unavoidable. We're going to have to talk about a few present day things. Now, we had the year of the metal rat last year. No one could make the argument that the year of the rat, regardless of what element it is always a fresh start of sorts, because the rat is the first animal in the Chinese calendar. And it's interesting how we have the metal rat, and then we have the year of the metal ox. Next year is the water tiger, but we have 2 metal years. And these past 2 years, the last year and this year, one interesting thing is that people seem to be getting a lot more interested in dealing with precious metals like gold and silver, which I guess would make sense in metal years. And I do remember in one of your recent videos, you talked about something about how this year people are going to have a lot of issues with debt cropping up. And I've been hearing a lot of people such as Bull Pony talk about how there's going to be some sort of crazy monetary things going on this year. He even says there's going to be this month in like April 23rd to 26th, there's going to be some sort of a Red Sea moment, he calls it. And it's interesting how in the Red Sea right now we got those ships that are clogging up the Suez Canal. Very fitting. And everybody is always talking about the possibility of the financial system is going to have some sort of a reset. Interesting. I want to point out that one that I have heard from people like Simon Parks that the #1 reason that DT is not serving a second term right now is because he wanted to put America on the gold standard in his second term, and the bankers will not allow for that. So they did everything they possibly could to make sure he is not the current president at the moment. But I personally have felt this urge to want to solve debt problems. I have like until August, for some reason, my intuition is telling me act like a Jesus Christ communist. Try to like discipline yourself to live off your needs and don't buy things that you don't need often. Try to get your debts paid off and everything. And when I heard you mention that like throughout this year people are going to have like a lot of their debt problems taken care of and whatnot, I thought, well that makes perfect sense. And now there's also going to be, Word on the Street has a lot of things are going to be happening with the stock market this year, and I'm sure you're aware of the whole silver squeeze thing. Ever since the GameStop Reddit thing, people have been obsessing about buying silver, and the word on the street is that by the end of this month, maybe that Red Sea moment, we're going to see something really big with silver. Now, I'm trying to connect a lot of dots here, but can you perhaps make sense of all this? What is going on this year in terms of debt and finances? What do you potentially see happening? And can we actually should we be hopeful that maybe our financial system, where the bankers loan us money that doesn't exist and charge us interest on it, will eventually, hopefully, be coming to an end in the near future?
That's a very deep question. So first of all, I just want to say that I'm a strong believer that we always have the freedom and power to manifest our collective future. And I don't believe that there's some doom and gloom out there, that we are not aware of, and we're just gonna suddenly overnight, just like this 2012 movie, like the whole world will just collapse or something. I personally believe that, is that a possibility? I think it's one of the possibilities. If you look at how all the governments around the world have been printing money, and the level of just the debt that's been piling up in all the governments, all the countries, and also individuals, it is a record level. And is it possible that we're going to face this Red Sea moment? I think there is a possibility there, but I think before we personally experience anything like that, I do believe that we have the divine is giving us a choice at this moment to decide what kind of future we want to live in. And I think if enough people become aware of this, and enough people just become aware of their personal issues, when millions of people come together and stop borrowing money, stop being so reliant on debt, on borrowed money, on other people's money, I think it will create this butterfly effect. Everything will change accordingly. So, but coming back to Chinese astrology, this year is a very interesting year. This is the yin metal year. Last year we had the yang metal, and this year is the yin metal. And metal in Chinese astrology is not just the material metal, the gold. It's also a kind of energy that is, kind of cold, it's kind of cooling. It's very, very strong, but sometimes, yang metal is so strong that it can break, So that was almost like, sort of signaling the breaking point of our society, right? Like we seemed like a very, very powerful society. We became this world, I don't know how to call it. It's like there's this world government, like the whole world became one, right? We only have like one supply chain. We want to make one thing, we need like 43 countries creating different parts to it. It seems like this perfectly well-oiled machine all the way till 2019, and then when the metal rat year came, the 2020 came, guess what? That yang metal just broke, right? That's how we started experiencing this crazy pandemic that nobody had thought would happen. So in 2019, actually, end of 2019, I made a video about this. I didn't say specifically that we're going to have a pandemic, but I definitely said that we're going to have epidemics. So we're going to see some bad things happen. And 2020 it's going to be very different. So now looking back, that was the breaking point of our society. And then 2021 is here, and this is the yin metal year. Remember, in Chinese astrology, the yin always follows the yang. The yang is the engine, right? The beginning, and the yin is the follower. So we're not fully out of this energy yet, and it's like in 2020 it just suddenly broke, and this is the year we have to pick up the pieces. And the metal is always associated with money and financial market, So definitely this year, money is a big issue. And I think the last 2 years, this is something that is in everybody's consciousness. And like you said, a lot of things happening in this world are being manifested because of, if you look at this from Chinese astrology, everything makes sense. And remember, in Chinese astrology, in my school at least, we believe that these energies on the heavenly stems, like these yin metal, yang metal, this kind of energies, they are not very stable. So whenever you see that particular energy show up in your transiting year, that always means that there's some instability there. So when you have a metal year, that means the metal element is not stable this year. So it wasn't stable last year. This year it's going to be just as unstable, or it could be, it's just, the yin energy is a little different from the yang. The yin is a little bit more cooling, and it happens kind of under the surface. Sometimes with yin energies, like things would break in its core, but on the surface it appears to be okay. I feel like, that seemed to be, what this financial market looks like. Right now we're at record high stock market. We have, a lot of financial products are going skyrocketing. I'm not an expert in that, but just observing what things are happening, I feel that, people need to be very careful. And this is the year we all need to pay attention to our finances, and instead of being, carried away by these crazy highs, we need to really find our roots, go back to that ox energy, that stabilizing energy, and, start to, like you said, you're doing the perfect thing by starting to take care of your own finances and pay off your debt, because this in metal energy is going to start fading away around August. So because August is going to be the month of fire, and the fire is going to melt away the in metal. And after the yang fire month, we're going to have an yin fire month. That's even more challenging to the in metal. So definitely around August, September, we're probably going to see a dip or something is going to give, But whether or not that's just the beginning of some kind of Red Sea moment or something crazy, I think it's up to all of us. We're all here manifesting, and I believe that I'm an optimist. I believe that we have the power to manifest the future that we deserve.
Yes, switching gears for a moment. I recently had a guest named Donna Stellworth on, who does a lot of work with Chinese astrology and metaphysics. And one thing she seems to disagree with is a lot of the sources out there who claim that that the Chinese zodiac signs have a Western equivalent. Interesting story I have with this, where I was debating whether or not to get a dragon figurine in my house as a Feng Shui item, because I'm a fire tiger, and I read somewhere that tigers and dragons may not necessarily mix. But when I read that the Aries is the Western equivalent of the dragon, and since I'm an Aries because I'm April 7th, I decided, okay, I think this is all I need to hear to think, okay, it's okay for me to get a dragon sign. But Donna Stellworth disagreed with the links that people have made, like also Tiger, the equivalent is the Aquarius. She says she disagrees with that naturally, and some of the others. So where did this come from? Like the Chinese signs have Western equivalents, and do you agree or disagree with what all the sources say they would be?
Yeah, I kind of lean toward Donna's opinion. I agree with her. I don't think there is a real apple-to-apple comparison between the Western zodiac and the Chinese. When I do readings for my clients, I always put both Chinese and Western charts side by side, and I read both. And a lot of times I do focus more on the Chinese astrology, because I feel like it helps a little bit more in understanding the timing of things. But I think in very rare cases, or hardly any cases, where we would, the two charts disagree with each other. If I see this person, for example, is extremely introvert, it's definitely going to show on on both charts. However, I think the Western astrology, the 12 signs are, they're just different ways to describe the same energy. It's like, give you an example, like the other day, my son, he came back, I have a 10-year-old, and he said, oh, in my Spanish class, our teacher teach us how to say, uno is you no, uno is one, right? So the Spanish teacher wanted them to learn, to learn the Spanish word uno, and she didn't know how to teach them. So she said, okay, just to think of ew, no, and my husband speaks Spanish, and he's like, no, that's, the uno has nothing to do with ew, no, so I think comparing the Western, the Western zodiacs and Chinese, making that link, it's very similar to say uno is ew, no, it just sounds similar, but it's two different things. However, you can say, uno and one are the same, right? But they're still not exactly the same, because these are two different language systems, and they just express themselves totally differently. And one thing I noticed that's very interesting is that, you know, in Western astrology, we have the Jupiter cycle. The Jupiter roams around the zodiac every 12 years, right? And in Chinese astrology, we have the 12 zodiac animals. And remember that zodiac animals, they are in your earthly branches. And a lot of people say, like you say, you're a fire tiger or water tiger or whatever. That only means that you're born in that year of tiger, right? It doesn't necessarily mean that the tiger energy is particularly strong in you. I have to look at your entire chart to make that determination. And it's the same thing with Western astrology. You can't say that, oh, because you are, like, say, I'm a Virgo, but the Virgo energy may not be 100% strong in my chart because I have many other aspects, right? So I think it's more about like reading the entire chart and see the whole picture versus saying, okay, tiger equals to this, you know, dragon equals to that. I think that's a little bit too simplistic.
Yes, and I've also heard that in general, not always the case, but in general, whenever your animal sign is the year that you're in, like next year it's going to be tiger, well, it's going to be water tiger, but I and all the other tigers, including water tigers, should not necessarily expect things to be smoothly. I've heard more often than not, when it's the year of your animal, it usually turns out to be a strenuous and sometimes grueling year in some ways, but that's good because it teaches you a lot of like life lessons to make you a stronger person. And is that necessarily true in your opinion, that when it's your animal year, it's not really smooth sailing? It's usually going to be a little harder than you might expect in order to make you a stronger person.
That's actually, unfortunately, I don't agree with that. I think you still have to look at your entire chart because, you know, you can't be the same with everybody born in the same year, right? And but what you said kind of applies to your core energy. If you did my free training, you know, I give you a link to discover your core energy. In that, you know, I don't know what you are. You're probably not a tiger, right? You're one of the 5 elements, either yin or yang, or you're in one of the 10 energy categories. That goes by the day you're born. So that's a lot more precise than the year you're born. Remember, the year you're born in Chinese astrology, if you really dig deep, you know, it's a very small part of your birth chart. It's obviously the energy is there, you know, but it's not the most important part. Actually, the day you're born is more important, and the specific energy sitting on the heavenly stem of your day, that is your core energy. And sometimes, like say, let's say you are in metal, and this year is an in metal year, that's like what you said. Oftentimes you would have at least a few months. If you're in metal and you have an in metal year, like in this particular year, you should really be careful around, I would say, August and September, because the fire energy is detrimental to your core energy. But that also depends on the whole total picture of your chart. You may have other factors in your chart. You may have a protective cushion sitting somewhere that we're not seeing. So that's why it's always, I never just make a judgment about somebody's chart just by them telling me, oh, I'm born in the year of tiger, you know. And people often come to me and ask me, oh, you know, because I'm a tiger, you know, my girlfriend is a dragon, are we going to get along? The way I do this is really based on a lot of research and proof. And I like to, I like to look at this through people's real experiences, you know. So I would like to ask you, like, if you've experienced a couple of tiger years in your life, right? So when you're 12, when you're 24, did you have a very gruesome year? If that's the case, that might mean that, you know, there are some other factors in your chart, you know, that have, you know, the tiger energy happens to be prominent, and somehow it's, it's working with it's affecting you, when you have that transiting year. But if you look back, when you were 12 and you were 24, think of what happened, you may be able to get a little bit of a picture of that. But at the same time, you also want to pay attention to, all of us, we have a 10-year cycle. So every 10 years, our core energy, the background energy, the energy that the universe sent us shifts, okay? So you might have a helpful cycle when you were 12, and you may not have a helpful cycle when you're 24. Then, the 2 tiger years, you would have very different experiences. So in my school, not 2 single years are the same, okay? In some traditional schools, they say, when the wood people meet when the yang wood meets a yang metal year, you're gonna get famous. In my school, we just don't 100% agree with that, because if you read hundreds of people's chart, you realize that not everybody experienced that. People experience that because they have other factors in their chart that made that happen.
Thank you for trying to make sense of that. And when it comes to doing horoscopes, I try to be creative, but at the same time, one could make the argument I'm making things complicated for myself. Astrologyanswers.com is my website of choice for horoscopes. They give you the Western astrology horoscope, and they also give you the Chinese astrology equivalent. They don't do the elements, though, for the Chinese animals. They just do the animal without the elements involved. But in addition to that, I try to sometimes look at the sidereal horoscope. In sidereal astrology, I am a Pisces, because that's a fixed location of the stars, and I even get the numerology aspect involved, where personal days 1 through 9, and I try to compare and contrast all the horoscopes, and if there's a contradiction that I notice, I don't look at it as, okay, this contradiction means that this thing is going to cause problems for the other thing. I would rather look at it as seeing that I can use this to overcome the problems that may be caused with that other thing, if that's the best way to describe it.
Right, yeah.
Some people might be saying that I'm making things complicated for myself by looking at so many different horoscopes at once like that, and they would say, why don't you try every different day, try a different one and see maybe if that works out better. But do you support or not support my strategy of looking at different schools, different astrologies, and also numerology, and comparing and contrasting them as far as mapping out my days?
Well, I think, all roads lead to Rome. I personally, I've tried many different things, but I think if it works for you, that's a great strategy. I just think when you dig a little bit deeper in each system, it always gives you kind of different information, or even contradicting information, comparing to stuff you get from like a magazine or a website, because a lot of those are written by an AI, and they're not really looking at the whole picture of your birth information, So I don't personally, I don't do a lot of that. I tend to look at the details of the unique birth chart of myself or my families, but overall, I think you can use the astrology as a way to basically manage the timing of your life, right? If you see that all of these horoscopes are pointing you to a direction where the next month you are going to something, it may not be a very favorable energy.
You there? Did I lose you? Uh-oh. I think I lost you. Calling you on my cell phone, but you just called me back, realizing we got disconnected. Okay. Sorry about that. No harm done. I'll just make sure I combine what was recorded up until then with what's being recorded now. So, all right. Let's go to another subject here. All right, one subject I'd like to talk about, because this does so happen to be the most popular video that you've done so far on your channel, uploaded a year ago, 772,000 views. How to use Nikola Tesla Divine Code 369 to manifest things. Okay, so what exactly is the magic of the 369? I do actually have on. Funny I mentioned that because I have a article on my site, how to manifest anything with the 369 manifestation method on the astrologylanguage.com site. I've been planning to do that for a while. I haven't gotten to it yet, but I'm chomping at the bit to get to it. So why don't you enlighten me and tell me what exactly I'm going to be doing if I try to use this method? How does this work, and why 369?
Okay. Okay, so why 369? So I was this happened kind of by coincidence. I was watching some videos about Nikola Tesla, about his life and his research and his time travel and all of that crazy stuff. And his uncle somehow had a connection to, I think it was, no, Donald Trump's uncle had a connection to him. I don't know if you've heard of it.
Yes, I did hear that. In fact,
interesting.
I've been saying on my show many times, Donald Trump, could you please spill the beans and tell us what your uncle found regarding his technology? And can't help but wonder if the evil forces out there are preventing him from spilling the beans on that. So, but that's another story.
Yeah,
So please continue.
so that was kind of interesting, So I was just reading about, watching videos, reading about that, and then I learned that Nikola Tesla he was just really big on 3, 6, and 9. He believed that 3, 6, and 9s are divine numbers, and because mathematically, like you can, let's say you have a circle that's 360 degrees, right? So when you divide it by half, it becomes 180 degrees. 1 plus 8 is 9. And you divide it again, you still get to the number either 3 or 6 or 9. So no matter how many times you divide a circle, you always get to that number 3 or 6 or 9. So these are basically numbers that are indestructible. So I heard that when he was alive, let's say he needs to go somewhere, and he would actually go upstairs and he comes downstairs, and he would go like 3 times. He would never just go 1 time. So he would always honor the number 3 and 6 and 9. So I thought, maybe I can use this, since these are indestructible numbers, right? Maybe I could use that to help people manifest, to help me manifest. So I figure, you can have an affirmation, then, you can write it, right? You write it 3 times, then you write it 6 times, then you write it 9 times. So it's a very simple method. You basically come up with a statement. That statement is basically what you want to manifest. And you always start with thank you, because, my philosophy is gratitude really is the key to manifesting. So let's say you want to manifest your dream job. You say thank you for the great job that brings joy and love and financial abundance and respect into my life. So you always combine the gratitude and the essence of your feelings. You create this statement. And the statement doesn't have to be long. It's just as long as it's when you write it, it takes longer than 17 seconds, because supposedly it takes 17 seconds for the universe to start responding to your request. So you basically just write it 3 times in the morning and 6 times sometime during the day. I usually do it like lunchtime, and before bed, you write it 9 times, and you do it for 33 days. So these are just the numbers, when I came up with this, I wouldn't say I completely came up with this. I think it's divine inspiration, because I do connect to spirit guides, and I just get these divine inspirations. So when I was inspired to this, this is what I was told, 3 times in the morning, 6 times during the day, 9 times at night. And do this for 33 days or 45 days. So that's the beginning of this. I thought this kind of too simple, right? So I made a video, I posted on YouTube, and I really didn't expect it to be my #1 video, and it's just gotten so many views, and a lot of people start to make the same video. If you you look up Tesla code, you probably see like 200 videos. You know, I'm the first one making that video, and I'm glad, you know, this, and I don't have a trademark on this. I'm glad more people are seeing the power of these numbers. And it's also interesting that, because if you look at it through Chinese astrology, the number 3 represents fire in Chinese astrology, and the 6 represents earth, and the 9 represents water. So they kind of, you know, you have fire, you have earth, you have water, and they're all yang numbers, which, you know, they have a lot of energy. So it's very interesting, you know. You can kind of see it through different ways, and it really works. You know, it worked for me, and I got a lot of emails and messages from people. People are telling me that it's very simple, but it works.
You're making me want to get to that how to manifest thing sooner rather than later, hearing that. All right, let's talk about Feng Shui stuff for a little bit. One thing that is really interesting regarding the flying star system is that every year there's a different chart. There's the 9 squares within a square, numbers labeled 1 through 9, and it changes every single year. The biggest question I'm sure people have with this is, okay, does that mean I'm supposed to move around the things in my house every single year? Well, some would say, no, don't do that. You're only making things more complicated for yourself. Just keep things where they are and just try to incorporate things with them better so they resonate more with these numbers. So how exactly do we make sense of this? Can you please help people make sense of why it is that the numbers in the flying star chart change every single year, and how are we supposed to work with that?
So I think the best way to describe this is that these numbers are not just numbers. They basically are names of the different energies. So there are 9 that you can imagine, you know, there are 9 different kind of energy patterns. Some are positive, some are not so positive, some could be even challenging. You know, in the Chinese, you know, like in ancient Chinese, they call them like, you know, like officials, you know, they basically rule a certain part of your life, right? So every year they sit in different positions. They come in from different directions, because you know, space and time are the same thing, and this is just a way to, you know, the Chinese astrology makes sense of the energy patterns. So I wouldn't be too concerned about or too just too obsessed with why, you know, this one is here and next year why it's there, because they do have a complicated formula to calculate it. Thankfully, you know, these days with internet, with you know, apps, you know, we don't have to manually calculate that, but there is a rule. So basically, you know, I wouldn't like change up the whole house to every year, you know, to accommodate that. However, I would use certain elements in the different directions. And most importantly, you know, I think the most important factor in Feng Shui is really leaving space and being clean, okay? Because energy takes space to spin. And if you walk into a house with a lot of clutter, no matter how much, you know, Feng Shui decoration you put there, it's not going to work. And at the same time, you know, if you have seen like a Zen monastery, for example, in Japan, they don't have anything, you know, it's just, you go in, it's just empty space. They have the best Feng Shui. So I wouldn't be, you know, like I always tell my clients, you know, let's say the Feng Shui tells you, you know, in this year, in this direction, you need to put in, you know, something that attracts money, for example, right? Like let's say this year, the right energy there is wood. You could put you know, a pot of plants or something there. That's fine. But if you don't have anything to put there, just leave it empty and just to stay very clean, you know. Just with that, you're gonna notice a major improvement of your Feng Shui. And sometimes, you know, you can just like say, you know, let's say you need metal in a certain area. You can just put a tiny little metal coin there. The most important thing is really, your personal energy dancing with all of these, right? So you are basically initiating that positive energy by putting that specific Feng Shui item there. So think of you as the trigger of the positive energy, and also think of you as the challenger of the negative energy. You as the the counter person, right? You can counter the negative energy, not by fighting it, but by simply, allowing it to be there and don't engage with it.
Thank you, thank you. Another popular video that you've uploaded here, that over a year ago, that's gotten 56,000 views, is Ho'oponopono 108 times. Okay, so let's kill two birds with one stone here. Ho'oponopono, what's that? It's a Hawaiian form of ritual meditation, I believe, and also the number 108. I've heard a lot of things about why that's a significant number. There's a lot of beads sets. Bead necklaces have 108 beads on them. There's also 108 stitches on a baseball. Maybe you can help make sense of why that was decided. Is there a reason why there are 108 stitches on baseball? Does it have to do with the magic behind the number 108? So Ho'oponopono and the number 108. Let's kill two birds with one stone here. What's this all about?
Well, I like to mix things, like when if you just read about Ho'oponopono, nobody said that you should do it 108 times, right? So the reason why 108 is because I practice Buddhism, and in Buddhism they see 108 as a divine number, and if you add 1 plus 8, that's what you get to 9, right? That's the Tesla number 9. So 108 in Buddhism symbolizes fulfillment of desires, symbolizes completion of things. It's basically, it's like a divine number, So when in Buddhism, when you practice a mantra or you practice Buddhist prostrations, they always have you do it 108 times. So I start doing my affirmations 108 times. I have other videos talking about how I do, I speak affirmations into water. I speak 108 times every day. And it does boost the effect of it, because you're really, just think of these numbers, these divine numbers, whether 369 or 108, they're like helpers, right? It's like, it's like you just get on somebody else's car so you can, go much faster rather than walking by yourself, So that's basically just a divine helper. And so I thought, what, you can do Ho'oponopono 108 times. Ho'oponopono is basically a very simple prayer. We all know that. It's just a thank you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, I love you, right? These 4 phrases. So if you do it 108 times, you're generating the effect of probably millions of times, just simply by leveraging the power hidden in these numbers. And I firmly believe that numbers have powers. That's why you also read about numerology. It's just fascinating how, certain numbers are just powerful, So when you combine the Ho'oponopono and the 108, it's just magic happens, So I don't know why, so many people start to watch it, but, I'm assuming that it's working for them, and it works for me. So I'm glad that many people found that video.
All right, we've almost reached the hour mark, so let's maybe do just a couple more questions and subjects before we call it a night. I'd like to also kill two birds with one stone yet again. We haven't talked about Reiki much, but also in addition to Reiki, I see you have some videos here dealing with EFT tapping. I can attest that EFT tapping really does work. I've downloaded some videos from Natalie Ledwell of Mind Movies instructing how to do EFT tapping, and every time I do it, it really does seem to de-stress me and make things feel a little more comfortable. So maybe you can explain the science behind why that works. I definitely encourage it. Why does it work? And also, there's different kinds of Reikis. What kind of Reiki do you do? And also, what the big question I have about Reiki is, do you have to train yourself to be a Reiki master, or is it really as simple as realizing that you're infinite consciousness, you have the ability to do it, just realize you have the ability to do it, intend to do it, and you should be able to do it even if you don't have anybody train you how to do it?
You know, this is a really good question. I think that we all have Reiki. We all radiate Reiki. You know, sometimes like I just ask my son, like when I do Reiki on him, you know, a 10-year-old, he would say, "Well, Mom, I also feel Reiki coming out of my hands," you know, and he was never attuned as a Reiki master. So I personally believe that it's just part of our nature. You know, when we become more spiritual and we evolve, we're activating that within us. You know, it's this Reiki is basically the life force, you know, that flows through us. So in that sense, do we need to train ourselves as Reiki masters to do Reiki? No. I think, you know, if you just, you know, when you're in your meditation, you close your eyes, you just pull out your palms and you start sending energy out and you start to feel the warmth coming out of your palms. That's Reiki. And you can also, like, sometimes when you have like a little stomachache, you know, when it's not very severe, you know, you put your hands on it and you feel the warmth, it actually heals, you know. So that power is in everyone. It's just, you know, most people are not aware of it. Most people don't believe in it. When you don't believe in it, it's not going to work for you, right? So that's my take on Reiki. However, in the Reiki tradition, you know, I'm trained in the Usui Reiki school, which they believe that, you know, to know how to use Reiki the correct way, you know, you want to be attuned, meaning you need to receive attunement from a master. And there are 3 levels of attunement, and each attunement is basically like like a magical experience. You know, I did this with a local master, so my master was in the same room with me physically. I also, you know, sometimes I attune other people remotely. You know, I've heard of people getting attuned remotely and they get just as much benefit, you know. But I really enjoyed my experience of being, you know, receiving Reiki from a master, you know, physically, you know. So that's kind of the school that they believe in, you know. I think when you receive Reiki attunement, definitely, I think the official attunement, I guess it's a little bit more, because it's trained, you know, I think you kind of get it the right way, you know, so you avoid a lot of the unnecessary negative energy, you know, and also the energy is probably more pure, and you definitely feel it, you know. So yeah, according to the school, you're supposed to be attuned by a master, because it's a person's human to human, you know. It's like the master gives Reiki to his or her disciple, and, you know, you kind of pass down the lineage of Reiki. So that's also a beautiful thing, you know. It's symbolic, and it kind of preserves the history of Reiki, right? So yeah, that's my take on it. And speaking of EFT, why it works, because EFT, I think the gentleman who initially started doing EFT, he was trained in acupuncture for a few years, and so he found that, you know, according to acupuncture, which is Chinese medicine, which is actually has a lot of similarities with Chinese astrology. So according to Chinese medicine, you know, you have different qi channels, different energy channels all over your body, right? And their theory is that, you know, you can't see these energy channels, but when the channels are blocked, you are sick, right? You experience pain, either physically or mentally or spiritually. So when an acupuncture massage certain points on these qi channels, your channel become unblocked, and so when the energy is flowing freely, you have no problem. You don't have pain, you don't have disease, you don't have sickness. So the EFT is really based on the same theory. You know, when you're tapping these points, these are not just some random points on your body. You are tapping through certain energy channels, and these energy channels, you know, usually when you have an issue, that means something is blocked there. So when you tap these points, you're essentially, becoming, it's like when the plumber unclogs your toilet, it's the same thing. You're basically unclogging your chi channel, your energy channel. That's why, you always feel, when you tap through these points, you always feel a sense of relief. Sometimes you feel like yawning or tingling. That's all a sign of just, suppressed negative energy leaving your body, and you're just being restored to your original state of being, which is one with the divine, So that's why it works.
Thank you. And I guess we'll I have one more question here for you, and then we'll bring this interview to a close. There was a video you uploaded 2 months ago. I think this may have been, I didn't watch it because I subscribed to your channel after, sometime after this. The video is titled, "When will the pandemic end? When will we get our life back?" Okay, now a couple things I need to point out before we start this. Some people have, there's different theories on what's going on here. First of all, David Icke, the great orator of our time, he did a complete 180. He first said that he believes that yes, there is indeed a virus, and that it was actually genetically engineered in some way, possibly from a virus that was originally on bats in Wuhan labs. And he actually pointed out that is it a coincidence that the virus started in a place where there are a couple of biological labs in the Wuhan area? I think not. Well, he did a complete 180 of sorts when he said that no, actually there is no virus. When they test for the virus, they're not testing for the virus. They're testing for a genetic material exosome that resembles the virus. And he asserts that this whole pandemic is a complete and total scam that the control system is using to, well, control lives more. Well, at first, it didn't really seem that way. It only seems that they've tried to take advantage of this pandemic to control our lives in some way, because they're losing control to a great extent, and they need to do whatever they can to keep control. And Tolek, who channels the Andromeda Council, he pointed out when this whole thing started back in March of 2020, he asserted that this was not started, the lockdown anyway, not the pandemic, but the lockdown aspect was not done by the bad guys. It was the reason we were all told to go in our homes in a lockdown. That was planned by the white hats, the good guys. They wanted to do that because by getting everybody in their houses in a lockdown, it was easier for the white hats to try to do a spring clean sweep of all the criminal organizations that were around the world. And at that time, there were some videos uploaded saying that child trafficking around the world is coming to an end to a great extent. And there are people like David Wilcock and others were saying that there were some operations going on in March and April when the lockdown was happening, where a big child trafficking organization and banking cartel mafia groups and such were being taken down, and it made sense for the white hats to put us in a lockdown so they could actually have an easier time performing this. Now, that's the first thing. Now, the second thing I want to stress is all this stuff about when will our life get back to normal. Well, a lot of people have been talking about how there are plans to release a lot of technologies and such in the near future, which will enable humanity to get off the go along to get along hamster wheel of 9 to 5 enslavement, where we can actually have everything provided for us. We don't have to work to survive. We don't have to pay bills anymore, and all the technology can come out. So when you hear that, okay, let's end this damn thing and get life back to normal, well, I'm going to say loud and clear right now, I don't want our life to get back to normal unless we can actually release all the stuff that has been suppressed for all these years. So when we get back to normal, it can truly be normal, where we're not slaves to the system anymore. If we're just going to end, if this is going to end and we're just going to get on the same damn hamster wheel that we've been on for years and years and years, then, well, we might as well never have had the pandemic and the lockdown to begin with. And even if and it was totally worthless to do all those things that were done during the lockdown if they really were done to shut down the system. So that's what I have to say. I didn't see this video, but you know where I'm going. I don't want us to get out of this lockdown pandemic unless we can actually get out of it and not be slaves to the system anymore. I want to say that loud and clear, and I hope that will happen. So, do you see any end in sight? And also this stuff I said earlier about it possibly being a fraud, like people like David Icke saying it's just a genetic material exosome that they're testing for. There ain't no virus. What do you have to say about that?
Well, I don't know much about that theory. So, and again, I'm no expert in virus and all that. Well, I think it is kind of odd that this virus just, like in the past decades, right, we always had virus outbreaks, and here and there we had the Ebola, we had the H1N1. And I think it is kind of odd that this one just seemed to be like the perfect storm, right? It's like the perfect thing that somehow just took over. And again, I don't really know what is, because there's so many theories behind this. I don't know what is the right theory. What is the my spirit guides are actually telling me that try to stay centered. That's I think that's the gist of that video I made. It's been a while since I made that video. I don't clearly remember what exactly I said in there, but I think the gist of that video is basically, your personal journey is so much more important than what you think. I think regardless of what's happening outside of us, right? There's no way for us to really know. And I think also there are multiple realities. There's not just one single reality. So I don't claim to know exactly what's out there. And I think and every time I try to make an assumption, something is happening out there, my assumption may not be right because I don't have all the data. I don't know everything. But it all comes back to this collective experience is definitely odds, right? This is something that's abnormal for sure. It's not the life that we are used to live, and also, in a way, this is a wake-up call. Like you said, you don't want to go back to the so-called normal. And I also question, like, what is normal, right? Like, why are so many people living like on this hamster wheel, right? Like, do we have a choice? And I think, what I'm getting from my guides is that, we do have the power to create our future. It's not about people out there, who can come into my life and save me, or who can create some kind of system to save me. I think, in my personal experience, it's about really like define the essence of what I want to live, and just don't pay so much attention to what other people tell you, especially what the society considers as truth. You have to always look within and find that inner truth. And sometimes that inner truth is different from what you read in the news, or what other people are telling you. I don't know too much about these theories again, but I think in a way these theories exist because people are starting to question, is this reality we're experiencing really the best way to live my life, right? Don't I deserve more? I think that is an excellent starting point. But at the same time, I don't want to rely on a group of people out there to save me. I don't even want to rely on Jesus Christ or Buddha to save me, because I think that right now I have the power to save my life. Right now, I am manifesting my dream life. And right now, if you're listening to this, you have the power to change your life. And when we all make this shift, we are manifesting as a group. This power is tremendous. This group energy is going to basically completely shift our collective experience. It's going to shift the society, the rule of the society, the way the society operates. It's going to shift how, people define, what is happiness, what is your dream life. And I think we're actually, I'm optimistic. I think we're heading to a much better future that humanity deserves, and I think that is my belief. And how do we get there? I think that's up to the divine. And every day I stay open, and I'm just ready to be surprised, and I'm full of curiosity. And I just believe that 2024, around 2024, that's the new, according to Chinese astrology, it's a brand new period. In that era, it's going to be a very different energy. And I think, everything is going to be very different, and we're probably going to be surprised.
Yes, and I don't think we have time to talk about this, but it's very fitting you said that, because I was actually thinking as you were talking about this stuff, how 2024, yes, there's going to be some big things there. That's the end of the Pluto and Capricorn cycle, which is supposed to signal the destruction of everything that was not in humanity's best interest. And there's also that big eclipse that's going to happen on April 8th, 2024, that's going to crisscross America. Some people say that eclipse will signal the end of the Roman Empire, the modern era, that is the United States of America. And Brad Johnson, who channels Adronis, has repeatedly said over and over that the Illuminati control system will essentially be done for entirely by 2024. So, well, I hope there is truth to that, and I hope that is the case. And 2024, it's going to be the year of the dragon. Dragon is a very prominent symbol in Chinese culture and many other cultures around the world. But again, we don't really have time to talk about that. You really wanted to go only an hour, and we've gone a little past an hour. So why don't we bring this to a close now? Why don't you end this by getting out anything you'd like to get out? Give us your contact info, your website, anything else that you may be doing for the future, and let's bring it to an end, and wish the best of luck for everybody.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me on the show. It's been fun. And you can always find me on my YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/choosinggratitude. I have a website, that's choosinggratitude.net. So, we can always keep in touch on these platforms. I also have a Facebook page that's also called the Grateful Choice, actually. And it's a facebook.com/the Grateful Choice. And I have an Instagram that's also, Instagram handle, the Grateful Choice. But I mostly post my newest content on YouTube. So do follow me on YouTube. And thank you so much, Andrew, for having me on the show. And you asked some really, really amazing questions, and really got me, pause and think. So, I'm always excited to talk to like-minded people who are looking at the world kind of, one step forward, right? And you always look at our reality kind of one step deeper. And it's just always so much fun to talk to people who are not just, based on this 3D reality. And it's a great chat, and I hope we'll talk again sometime soon.
Yes, and best of luck to you. I look forward to watching your YouTube videos as you keep uploading them. Keep uploading, because you've got great things to say. Just like you had great things to say on this show, I learned a few things myself. Very enlightening, very entertaining, very interesting. So the best of luck to you. Good luck on your future endeavors, and I will upload this to YouTube probably by tomorrow. It'll be public for everybody in 2 weeks. By the way, if you tape recorded this at your end, you're more than welcome to upload it to your YouTube channel. If not, then I will send you a copy of the recording after I combine the interview that we did earlier and the one before it got kicked off the air, and then the second part after you call me back. I'll make sure I combine them, and I will send you that. And by all means, I would encourage you, please do upload it to your channel so we can kill two birds with one stone. Your channel will definitely get more views than mine will, because you have many more subscribers.
Sure. So yeah, please send me a copy. I didn't tape this. And yeah, good luck with your radio show. And you have some amazing guests on your show. And good luck with your channel. So good luck with the work you do. Thank you for the great work you do.
Take care. Bye-bye.
All right. Take care. Bye.